So I have another amazing student of mine, Mustafa, who's based out of Wisconsin, who's already making several $100,000 a year, and we're going to learn exactly what took him from in the Navy to an incredibly successful commercial realtor. Come check it out. All right, so I'm so excited to have you jumping on, my friend. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it very, very much. So Mustafa, first and foremost, you've been a student now for a number of months. First thing I want to talk about is, as a guy doing over 200,000 a year in gross commissionable income, what is one of the biggest things that has changed in the last couple of months that we've been working together versus months before the coaching program?
For me personally, well, thank you for having me first. For me personally, the first thing that really changed and like that struck gold, if you want to say, is the way you handle the call. Like the way we and you teach to handle the call is before it was just like, hey, build a relationship and see what happens out of it. That's the general bias, if you want to say. But more of what the way you teach it is more to be more direct and not waste their time, be respectful of their time, and not waste your time at the same. On the residential side, I mentioned to the group when we're studying, is that the biggest takeaway is at the end of the call, you should have an appointment. Otherwise, you're calling to set up an appointment at the next call or such a thing. And then on the commercial side, it was to have enough information to be able to give an offer on the phone if needed. So those two things were honestly the biggest eye openers for me. And I'm now pushing it down to actually my agents that work with me, for them to also do the same thing and for them to use that knowledge and learn from it.
I couldn't agree with you more on there, and it's really is interesting how you can have such a different dynamic or different results. Two people doing the same exact prospecting, and one can have unbelievable results, and the other one could be struggling. And it's just about what you say and how you say it.
A lot of the training online is very passive, if you want to say. Some of it is passive, but with your training, it's more direct and more making sure that you're actually doing what you need to do to create a transaction, because at the end of the day, that's what matters in order for you to make more money in the business, in order for you to grow.
Great point there. So let's rewind the clock a little bit, my friend. So it's like, now that you're doing well over 200 a year in gross commission income, which is friggin' incredible. But obviously we didn't start there. Love to kind of get an idea of you before real estate. Like, what made you get into the industry? How long ago was that? And give me a little bit more of the backstory.
So I started as an entrepreneur, I'd say in 2019, 18. I actually was just printing t-shirts at the basement. So that's how it started off, and then eventually grew to at the same time I was doing college, and I had started my Navy career, which I was in the Navy Reserves for about 6 years, starting at that time. So all of them started together. I would say the Navy was a big change for me because it disciplined me as a person and also put things in perspective of like how responsibility works and what are you supposed to be responsible for, and actually maintaining your responsibilities and taking care of them. So I was doing print ads, and then we're doing signage, and then after a while in the signage business, didn't see much of an exit strategy to it, or like a growth strategy in a way, where it's just you're in the one location, you're just selling signs, let's say. I was always in sales. There's not much afterwards. Not much satisfaction with either, because it's 100% transactional. However, with real estate, the way I thought about it is I want to become a developer or build properties and whatnot. But in the short term, I need to make that money, to make some money fast, so I can fast track that growth and actually get to where I need to be. Yes, it's money focused in a way to begin with, because I was desperate for money. But now that I'm in a decent shape, as far as, if you want to say, as far as the income, it's more about the bigger goals in life and more of what you want to do. So at the beginning, it started with desperation, if you want to say, and the dislike of strictly transactional items, which was the signage, and then create money. And then now it becomes like, do I really like what I'm doing to make the money that I'm doing? The answer is yes. Obviously, it's the commercial side is teaching me a lot about property management, investing, and numbers, and all those good things. And the residential side is teaching to be humble and to to put a smile on the face, for sure. And then it's very nice to have it where when we're helping the families are actually finding homes, and they're finding a place to move into. It's not just a transaction, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, so let's dive into a lot of this, because you talk about a couple different key points that I want to bring up, right? Number one, you're in the Navy. I feel like there's a lot of people from the military who get into business and as an entrepreneur, because you learn such valuable skills when you're in the military. So, and then I also want to dive into like the first couple years as an entrepreneur in the other business before we dive into the real estate stuff. So from the transition of the military to being an entrepreneur, did you know you wanted to be in business, or was that just something that happened? I mean, I'm just curious.
It honestly just happened. I don't know. I don't know what got me started into it to begin with, but I knew I wanted to make a decent amount of money where I can have a better living, if you want to say. And
Okay.
that's where it started out of, and that's what got it started. But eventually, what kept it going, I would say, systemizing everything, making sure certain numbers are being hit, making sure we're offering the best service around, so you're being competitive with your pricing. You're not being the cheapest, because that just messes up the pricing for you and for everybody else's.
Yeah.
You're just selling yourself out of business at that time. So no, I didn't know become a business owner or anything, or where I'm at today, but I'm very thankful for it and very happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
So it sounds like, at least from what I'm understanding, is that obviously it was a kind of like the lifestyle you wanted to live. That's what trying to drove you. You wanted to have
right.
more
Yeah,
freedom.
it
You wanted
was,
to live
and I think there was a big hype around business ownership at the time too. That
Right.
was that definitely played a part into it. But now that after getting into the business, it wasn't like the same as the hype.
It never is. They don't tell you
Yeah,
that part.
no,
They don't tell you that part.
yeah.
Let's talk about the transition then from being an entrepreneur in the sign business, like you were, which, and obviously we can, talk about the struggles of, becoming a brand new entrepreneur. I want to understand why commercial real estate. Like, why did you choose to get into this industry?
The transition was what helped me with the business, the older business, is that I had my own customers there, and I had a big base of customers that I, let's say, knew personally or didn't know. So there was a big base that you can reach out to, and just like you said, the more people you reach out to, the more transactions you're able to do. So I had a bigger base to reach out to, and then more people that are possibly looking for the service that I was offering. I kind of had the marketing side done, or I knew what I was going to do as far as the marketing, but I didn't know what I need to do to produce income. And
Sure.
that was the biggest challenge, honestly. It took about 3 months for the first transaction to happen. But the first transaction actually was the owner of my last job that I used to work at before I opened up my business. So I guess life goes on and it happens that way. It was not that easy, but it helped that I had a book of business that I knew before.
Was that the reason why you chose commercial versus residential, or was there like a big thing?
No, I started with the residential 100%. Eventually, a lot of the signage owners did have their own businesses and were expanding, let's say, and they knew, because I reached out to them when I became a realtor. So they reached out, like, "Hey, Mustafa, now that you do real estate, can you help us find a property? Can you help me find something to lease?
Sure.
Can you help me find an investment property?" So
Right.
that's how it started. It started with multifamily investment properties, and
Okay.
then it moved on to plazas, and now we're working on a medical office building. Gonna be the biggest deal yet. So
I love that. So you got into residential, you had a decent book of business of, or at least clientele that you could work off of, a decent database, as we would say, right? So you
yeah,
took that database, you started hitting the pavement, and then you started transitioning because all of a sudden the demand from your database seemed to have shifted slightly into the leasing, the commercial side of things, investments. Let's talk about
yeah,
the daily activities that made you successful now in the commercial world. Because, and not just anybody, and I want to give you a little bit of a pat on the back here, which is not just anybody makes a few $100,000 a year in real estate. Like that's not just anybody, right? So give yourself some credit there. But I want to talk about like what you are accrediting to the fact that you've been able to achieve that number, right? Obviously, now we're shooting for bigger goals, which we're going to talk about future goals shortly. But what do you accredit to making your first few 100,000 a year? Like, what is the difference?
the way I started off was actually, like I said, I called the people I knew, and I was running marketing. However, I was doing, like, when I see a catchy video on YouTube, I click on it, and then I click the next one and the next one, and you just have like 100 ideas, 100 ways of making money. But if you don't do any of them, you're not really making anything. It's like having knowledge without using it. It's very useless to have. So what I did is I made sure I focused on one area that I wanted to actually grow in, and it was through the social media, making sure everybody around me knows what I'm doing, knows what I'm up to, and knows that the services that I'm offering.
Okay.
And that, to me personally, that's where it started off to pick up. I maximized my network that I had on social media as far as them buying properties, them leasing, them whatever, selling and whatnot. So after a while, that's a good start for, let's say, the first year, but the second, third years are not the same, because your network is still the same, but they're not. Doesn't mean they're all doing transactions every year. And that's when I needed to start prospecting. And that's what actually took my business from like less than 100 to over 100 and more, is the prospecting and doing the cold calls and actually reaching out to people and just getting out of the comfort level. And I feel like once you get out of the comfort level, sometimes you like stabilize, and that's when you start falling back again. You got to keep growing. I guess it's just like a wheel. You got to keep spinning it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to reiterate a few things. So
in the
Right.
beginning part of your career, hitting the database hard. Every person in your contact list, making sure everybody knows
Yeah.
who you are, what you do for a living. Love that. Number
Right.
two,
Yeah. Like
social media. Be loud, proud about who you are, what you do, tell the freaking world, and post an unreasonable amount of times where like everyone in your ecosystem knows you're the go-to person. And then
right. Yep.
three was prospecting your tail off and really hitting the phones hard.
Because I remember when I first started, I think I had like 500 contacts, and now I just pulled it up. There's 2,409 contacts on my phone. So
Boom.
all the 500 I hit up like as soon as I got into real estate. Hey guys, I'm doing real estate. If you need anything, I'm right here. It doesn't hurt them. Like if anything, maybe I'm doing them a service.
It's
And
so
I ended up
fascinating how like these newer brokers get in the business and they have a database, but like they're like, oh, I don't know who to call. I'm like you have a
just pull out
700
your
person
phone.
contact book.
A lot of people didn't have their contacts. I just reached out to them by Facebook. Like I
Yeah.
knew they were doing, let's say, investing or something, and I never saw them. Like if you see anybody that might be making a move and that possibly can make a move, they're probably a client of yours. Could be a client of yours, and especially that you have a relationship with them, you can possibly be a better option for them. You're advising them honestly versus you just advising them for a commission.
What this makes me think about is how simplistic and how in your face all of these opportunities are. I'll give you an example because this is just where my mind's going. On the
Yeah,
residential side, if you see somebody get married, if you see somebody have a baby, if you see somebody, their kids are graduating school, and then you don't reach out to them about the life changes that are going on in their life, that's, congratulations on the baby, congratulations on getting married, whatever, just so you reintroduce yourself back into their life at the right moment because they're probably going to need a larger or a smaller home given what's going on. They just gotta,
right.
maybe they're gonna have a big promotion or they're moving out. Like, people are so obvious on social media, and no one pays attention
Yeah,
to things. And then on the commercial side, it's like you just opened a business. They post something about stock investing, they post something about money, or all these types of quote investments that they're making and other aspects. Have you ever considered real estate? I see that you're crushing it in the stock world. Have you ever considered real estate? Hey, I saw that
right.
you just bought a new car. Looks like you're absolutely crushing it in business. What do you do? Have you ever thought about investing in real estate? It's just
Exactly.
like people are so obvious these days about what's going on in their
Yeah.
lives, and no one pays attention to it.
A lot of the friends too, they'd be like, "Oh, like damn, I never thought about doing that. I should start doing it." Like for example, and you can have those people that grow with you. Also, you're doing them a service, honestly. Like at the end of the day, a lot of people feel like it's annoying to reach out to people and feel like they're hurting
They
somebody's
don't want to
feelings. I
bother
guess
them.
there's nothing negative that you're giving off to someone, right? It's either you're helping them buy, sell, or trade or whatever they're doing, or you're teaching them something new. Like, hey, the interest rates went up. Hey, the interest rate went down. Like, you're not hurting them in any way. You're actually adding to them, if anything. So
100%.
those simple reach outs and piggybacking off what you said on the live events. And actually in 2021, I made it my goal to, on Facebook where it tells you this person's birthday, this person's birthday. I made it my goal to reach out to everyone on their birthdays and just on a specific that's a post. It takes
That's
like
powerful, man.
5 minutes, if that. And that just opened up a lot of doors for me later too.
Super
I'm
powerful,
actually still doing
easy
it
way.
nowadays, so
Yeah.
I would highly recommend it.
It really can be that easy though, and people are kind of overlooking these really simplistic ways of generating opportunity.
Yeah. The thing is,
So,
I think when with the starting agents, a lot of them just get overwhelmed with how many ways there could be and how many ways you can make money or you can advertise yourself and market. And it just comes down to picking
choose
one
one.
thing that matches your personality and doing that one thing.
Choose one and be the best in the friggin' world at it.
I was on social media a lot, so I just posted on there. I was on Facebook a lot, so I messaged a lot of people. Before that, I was on Snapchat, and now I don't even use it. But that's where I used to reach out to people. Hey, I'm not reaching out like, hey, are you trying to buy a home or no? And it's not like that. It's like, hey, how you been? What are you doing? Once you ask them what they're doing, they'll ask you what you're doing. I think that's your opportunity to just kind of you're not even pitching them, you just tell them what you're doing. That's all
And
that's
tell me,
all it
like,
takes.
because we've talked about reinventing ourselves, right? I'm just so curious, man. Like, as somebody like yourself, you're already making great money. Like, why was coaching important to you? Like, why is that a must?
Personally, I feel like coaching is necessary at every level, and you have to find a coach that's above you or like at a level where you want to be, and then also that's not like too far away or like that's not too close to where you're like I'm not gonna hire somebody that's making 300,000 a year, for example. That's not what I need. I need somebody to teach me how to go to get to the million because I had that when I didn't make more than 100,000. That's who I used to use as a coach. But now that I need to get to the millions, I need to find somebody that's actually there, that's actually able to show me like, hey, this is what you do, this is how you do it, and this is just do it. and be consistent, and you make this. It's already been tried. So like you said, like we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you just need to reinvent yourself, or like grow yourself. It's just walls, at the end of the day, from like be under 100K to get 100K, it's not that much of a difference. It's maybe a little bit different lifestyle, but like we said in the call today, in the coaching call, it's once you make that amount of money, you figure out like money's not what you need. There's something else. Money's not the highest motive, let's say. And figure out that motive. It's helpful. If you're making less than 100, do not worry if you're happy about it, about the way you're making the money or whatever. Just make the money and then figure it out. Because a lot of people just get stuck like, I don't like how what I'm doing. And sometimes we blame it on the thing that we're doing, but it turns out that we're not doing anything for us to make that thing successful. Just because we're not in love with like real estate, we're not in love with business or whatever we're doing. So a lot of the times we blame the industry or the job versus blaming ourselves and just, excuse my language, but shutting the fuck up and doing the work that it takes.
Absolutely,
Honestly,
man. I mean, that's what it's all about, really. It's just getting to work and like, it's my responsibility. Like the success or the failure of whatever I'm doing is 100% my fault, right? Like whether I
yeah,
succeed.
I mean, a coach, and then like having a coach also to keep you accountable, and actually seeing that the coach is right there grinding with you and doing the same thing that they're asking you to do. There's nothing better than that. Like our morning calls, like the other day, I think you got cussed out or something, but that's fine. Like like that's what it takes to become what you need to become. Then you gotta do the work to become that person. Having a coach is an old question for me. Like until I reach a million, I'm gonna be here with you doing classes. So
I freaking
maybe
can't
more
believe
too.
it.
Maybe by the time I reach a million, you're at like 10, and then just keep going.
Well, I can't wait for that, man. Well, listen, let's talk about really quickly. Let's talk to an agent who's watching this content right now, and they're struggling to hit their first six figures in this business. We keep talking about the elusive 100,000, right? It's typically everyone's very first goal when they get into the business. They want to make 100 grand a year. What is one or two pieces of advice that you could give somebody who is struggling to hit that number?
Honestly, the same one that you give us. Measure yourself, track your time, and make sure your time is being put where it's actually reaping a reward. Like you have, I think, I'm not sure if it's available online, but this is yours. Like how many, it's one of the schedules, like how many people you talk to, how many leads you have, and how many conversations and whatnot. Like track that and make it into points. I made something similar for our brokerage. We have like 100 points a day, and each activity is a point. Like showing is 10 points, writing a contract is 20 points. Because then you're actually measuring yourself. Like you're not just imagine of it as a sport. Like if you're not scoring, you're not winning. That's your measurement. You got to score. So do whatever it takes to score, and that's
right.
I would think about it as similar as possible. Don't do everything. Focus on three things that can make you money. Don't do SEO, Google ads, Facebook ads, cold calling, door knocking, and all of them together. Do 2 3 of them and focus on them religiously, and those 2 to 3 will take you to a higher level than just doing everything at the same time. And then later on, you can hire somebody to do like your ads. You can hire somebody to do your SEO. But at the beginning, like don't make it cute. Like just do the fucking thing, and then you'll be fine. I promise you.
So I heard you say track your time and make sure you're spending your time on the highest dollar productive activities.
Absolutely.
And then the second thing I heard you say was focus on one, if not maybe two, high dollar productive activity, like as in for lead generation purposes, generating these leads. You shouldn't be trying to do everything. I agree.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be trying to be, door knocking and Facebook ads and this mailer and all these different things. If you're struggling right now to generate leads, you should choose one and be the best. I love cold calling. It's just something I became, incredibly, passionate about, enjoyed it, easy, like it was just like a simple thing for me. Right. So I just did that. So I would just make 500 to 1,000 calls every day, but I wasn't door knocking. I wasn't doing Facebook ads. I wasn't doing open houses. I wasn't doing all these other things because all I did was this one activity. Yeah. And then once you have a lot of extra money, I agree, then you can pay somebody to do your ads. You can pay somebody to do all these extra things. So you can add these layers of lead gen, but focus on one.
Yeah.
So.
And what we don't do also is we don't consider how cheap cold calling is. A lot of people like you do all these Facebook ads, you're spending 1,500 a month, if that, and sometimes you don't make anything back out of it. So as a new agent, like you don't have that much money to spend. So you better focus on they're cheaper, they take more work, but they make so much more money. It's crazy. It's like It's like the diamond in the rough.
I really think that it's important to pay attention to that factor. I'm glad you brought that up, where it's like, depending on where you are in your career and how much money you have to blow, essentially. Like if you have 5 grand left to your name and you're brand new in this business, I probably would be doing everything that did not cost money lead generation wise, like working the database, working my sphere, working my cold calling and all these other things where like I have a long runway where instead of just spending $1,000 to $2,000 a month on Facebook ads, which will be done in a month and a half, right? A month or 2 months. But if you have like 100,000 and you're just getting in this industry, depending on obviously what your runway looks like, because you could have 100 grand in the bank and live on 10 grand a month, you only have 10 months. But if you have 10 grand,
Yeah.
you live off of $500, not saying you would, but you'd have, 20 months of runway. So it depends on how much of a runway you have. But it would make you work differently. There's just no shortcut. Just because like you're going to pay for a lot of Zillow ads or you're going to pay for a lot of direct mail on the commercial side or whatever you're going to do, does not mean all of a sudden you're going to have like this incredible shortcuts of success.
It takes the same amount of work, if not more, because when you're calling, you're filtering people right then and there. There's 3 ways that a call could go: like wrong number, correct number that doesn't want to do anything, and the third one is they want to do something. So that's like a follow up, right? So the second and the right number, I keep that. Actually, that's something I learned from you. Like if it's the right number, keep it. Don't throw it away. A lot of people just say like somebody tells you do not call me anymore, and you just put them on the do not contact. Don't do that. Put them where that's the right phone number and contact them in 3 months. Maybe they'll need you by then, but they don't need you right now, which is fine.
And it's funny because I'll bring up one more thing, then we'll ask a final question. We'll wrap up for today. But I want to talk about this, which is interesting, which is people so many people in the industry will spend money on advertisements so that they don't have to prospect. They get scared to prospect. And
that's a fear I have myself.
I've been there too, right? So I've been there too. But
Yeah.
What's fascinating to me is that they will pay for Zillow ads, or they'll pay for direct mail, or they'll pay for these other sources of ways of generating leads, but then they don't realize that you still have to call them.
It's the same. It's just the same circle.
It's the same, exactly.
It's like a step of what you're doing.
It doesn't exactly. So like, even if you're calling your sphere, or even if you're calling your professional relationships, even if you're calling a Zillow lead or a cold call, it all takes the skill set of being on the phone and having not only your script down, but being able to build rapport, build connection, build a level of expertise and trust on that phone, and then close for whatever the next step is. So it's like you can't ever get away from that.
100%. I mean, like imagine if you get a Zillow lead, the Zillow sending you the lead, then you're calling them. That's the second step. If you're calling them, then you're already in the second step. You don't need to wait for the first one.
Exactly. And
I mean, that's one way to look at it too.
It doesn't cost you as much.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I even call people and I'm like, hey, I heard you're interested in selling your property. Is that right? They're not. I don't even know if they're interested. But hey, that's something I just skip to the second step, because that's what Zillow's sending you. Somebody that's interested in selling their property or buying a property. You might as well do it yourself.
Exactly. So last question, then we'll wrap up for today. If
Yes.
you had to speak to yourself, like younger version of you, day one in the industry, you are watching your future self right now, and you needed to get to where you are at in just 90 days. What would you say to them? Like, what would be your first 3 moves, first 3 steps in order to achieve the results you've achieved currently?
So if you want to make money in the 90 days, you need to focus on activities that produce money faster. Social media advertising, that's a slow process. That's 6 to 9 months. But when you're calling people that are interested in selling or buying, that's where obviously it's a faster return, because within 3 months, that deal is done. I would say focus on that. I did have a good, thank God I did have a good beginning as my career, because I had all these people that I knew. So that's what I would recommend to everybody to do. Like, reach out to your entire phone list, go to your Facebook, go to your Instagram, reach out to them. You're not selling anything. You're offering your service. Hey, this is what I do. If you're interested, let me know. I promise you can't sell somebody to sell their home. They sell it whenever they want. And I would definitely recommend, don't get comfortable, because sometimes we feel like we have 2 or 3 deals going on at the same time. We're going to make a shitload of money, but the next month there's no deals. So don't get comfortable with your 2 to 3 deals, and just keep pushing and have 3 deals every month, and then the next year 4 deals every month, and so on and so forth. That's the biggest thing I would say. Don't get comfortable, and then don't be cute. Just get the shit done.
First and foremost, I couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't have said it better myself. I love those 3 points. I agree. Get right to work. Don't be cute. Just be super direct. I think it's always going to be better that way. Focus on the highest dollar productive activities as often as you possibly can, as many days as you possibly can, and keep reinventing yourself. I agree. You can't get comfortable.
That's what messed me up last year. I mean, last year was a gold mine. I don't know why I slowed down. The last 3 years, to be honest, 20, 21, and 22 were amazing. Now that we're in pain, we're like, damn, I wish I was still in last year just so I could do more.
Yeah, and
So
like again, it's interesting how, I have now more pending contracts than I've ever had in my entire career, even during this time. I've never been at this point ever. And it's interesting because the economy is a BS thing we made up. Where if I had a gun to your head and I said, you need to have X amount of money in contract right now, pending contracts. Like if your highest ever pending contracts ever at one point was 100,000, they needed to have 300, or you have 30 days to get to that point, right? Like it's like that type of gun to your head mentality of like, because we often just don't think it's possible. I never thought I could have almost $2 million in pending commissions at one time. I never thought that would be a thing. Still remember when I would be between 100 and 200 and think that was crazy.
That's what you told me. The don't be cute is basically what I got out of it, is like just focus on what matters and just don't stop wasting your time and money, because money's time and time is money. Get to it.
I think that's a good way to end us off. Well, listen, Mustafa, last thing here.
Yeah.
How can people get a hold of you if they've got clients that are looking to do something? And you're just 1 hour south of Chicago and Milwaukee right now, correct?
North, yes, sir. Yeah.
Sorry, 1 hour north of Chicago. Love that.
I guess you can call the office 414-296-6929 or visit our website, newspace-realty.com.
Awesome. Well, look, we'll make sure we have all of your information down below so people can reach out to you. Other than that, man, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I greatly appreciate it. And for those of you watching, we'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
If you're still watching this video, that means to me that you're a committed real estate agent and you're looking to take your life and business to the next level. I'm just curious, why have you yet to schedule your free, no obligation coaching consultation? All you have to do is simply go in the description down below, and people are telling me this call has been the most unbelievable, the most powerful call they've had in their entire career. And here's just a few of the individuals who have taken full advantage of this call. And my mission is to support as many realtors as possible, build a 6- and 7-figure net income business so that they don't have to rely on this industry anymore for their everyday income. If you're a committed realtor, which I can see like you are, all you have to simply do to take full advantage of this free coaching consultation is to go in the description down below and schedule your free call now.